All right, so recently in the last couple of weeks, the Department of Justice has been doing rounds and carrying out investigations in multiple police departments throughout the U.S. And one of those departments that was found to be in violation of the U.S. Constitution and just fairness and humanity and decency all around was Phoenix. And that happened in August when they were found to be not compliant by the DOJ. And this incident that we're going to take a look at, where Phoenix PD is reportedly, not reportedly, actually punching a guy up pretty good, black guy who has cerebral palsy. So let's take a look and then we'll give some thoughts.
Yeah, we reached out to Phoenix police about this arrest, but they aren't saying much about it. They only confirmed it's now under internal investigation. But this case raises a lot of questions, and it really serves as sort of a test case. And that's both for Phoenix and the DOJ. See, Phoenix is trying to prove it doesn't need federal oversight. But will the DOJ trust the city when things like this continue to happen? You've seen the surveillance video. A Phoenix officer pulling into a parking lot, pulling in front of a man, darting out of his truck, then immediately going after him. Now, this is the body camera footage.
Everybody stop where you're at.
Remember, the man is deaf and has cerebral palsy.
See. Taser. Get your hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Get your hands behind your back. Hold him.
He's deaf.
Move. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Ultra X-ray taser deploy more units. Hand behind your back. Hand behind your back. Get more. Hand behind your back. More. Hand behind your back. Hand behind your back.
Between the two officers, the man is punched at least 10 times and tasered 4 times.
He can't.
I understand that every case has a background, and I'm sure they'll get into that in just a second. To be honest, even without the background, this is tough to watch knowing that the guy is deaf, right? And it just jumped out on him.
Understand that. And he's deaf and he's physically compromised. The entire thing is just outrageous.
That's Jesse Showalter. He agreed to watch the video with us, and that's because he's an attorney for Tyrone McAlpin. Together, they're planning to bring an excessive force lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department.
12 years you've lived here?
But before we get into that, first, let's get into why officers went after Tyrone.
When we look at the body camera that we've seen so far, what it shows is that Circle K employees had a Caucasian male in the store causing problems, and they called the police to trespass this person who wouldn't leave.
Hey, you guys just want this guy to trespass? Okay.
And when police arrive, they don't do any investigation to find out what this guy was doing in the store. Instead, they talk to the guy, and he claims that he was assaulted and points to somebody in the street that he claims did it.
The guy pointed at Tyrone, who was across the street.
You're saying that's the guy that's right there. Put the backwards head on. Yep.
I mean, so we have a situation where the officers respond. Some white guy says, hey, no, some black guy assaulted me, and they just drop what they're doing and head right over there.
That's what the video shows.
You're standing outside the door opening. That dude. Why don't you wait here first? The black guy?
Yeah. And that takes us back to this point.
Let's see.
And this police officer, out of the gate, assaults him and then uses Tyrone's attempts to protect himself to try to justify felony charges.
Officials charged Tyrone with aggravated assault and resisting arrest. In their reports, officers wrote Tyrone tried to walk away from them, took a fighting stance, threw repeated punches at them, and bit one of them.
Everything that I see in that video, as well as the other officer's body camera, looks like Tyrone's just trying to avoid being harmed by these officers. And that only makes them escalate the situation and increase the degree of violence that they're using.
One of the officers says Tyrone bit him. I mean, how do you respond to that?
Tyrone was face down on the ground with two officers striking and choking him, and that the only way that Tyrone could have possibly bit anybody on the hand or wrist is if one of those officers placed their hand or wrist in his mouth. And what it looks like from the video is that the officer who claims he was bitten was using an illegal chokehold on Tyrone.
Here's the question
right
that, you know, invariably, undoubtedly will be asked. Why didn't he just comply?
And the answer is easy, is he's deaf. He couldn't understand what they were doing, and he had done nothing wrong.
What
Got to mess with him for no reason.
What kind of disabilities do you have?
He's deaf and he's got cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And I've been on the phone with him since Circle K.
How is he deaf if you've been on the phone?
Because I know sign language, that's why. I signed to him. That's why.
Nowhere in their police reports did the two officers document they were told about Tyrone's disabilities. But records do show when another cop went back to check store surveillance footage and talk to witnesses, none of it supported the white guy's claims. Remember, he told officers Tyrone assaulted him at the store, but there was no evidence of any assault. Store employees say the white guy was the one causing problems, getting aggressive, laying on the floor, and refusing to leave. In fact, store employees told police Tyrone tried to get him out of the store and eventually just left. Now, this all happened on August 19th. That's 2 months after the Department of Justice released the results of its historic investigation into Phoenix PD.
It's almost like a single example that illustrates all of the problems highlighted in the DOJ's report.
Among many failures, the DOJ found Phoenix PD has a pattern and practice of racial bias, escalation, and not giving people a chance to comply before using force, excessive use of tasers, dangerous use of chokeholds, and violating the rights of people with disabilities.
It's hard for me to understand how the city can come out and say with a straight face that it is meeting the DOJ report head on when this man, Tyrone McAlpin, is being charged with assault on police officers for this incident where, you know, the video tells the whole story.
Hey, get up. Stand up. Oh.
I mean, so still now a month later, he's still facing charges for this.
That's correct.
He's in the cuffs.
Now, as you just heard, Tyrone is still facing several felony charges. In fact, even though those officers are under internal investigation, they still just went into court to testify against Tyrone. And as you can see, our cameras were there, and a judge ruled there was probable cause for the case to move forward. Now, in our next report, you'll hear those officers on the stand, hear their justification for the arrest, and you'll also see some bizarre moments in the courtroom.
Very tough to watch.
Believe it or not, folks, this case is still ongoing, and they are pressing forward with the charges. And as a result of activists, people who, like yourself and me, just on the internet, people calling, people going there, people emailing, they are now having the district attorney look at it, and at most, they've now said this case is worth another review, right? That's what they're saying at this point. That's of 10/15/2024. So let's get into this. This is heinous on many levels. First off, so we didn't have the background up front, but the background we got later on is that some guy who was identified as a white guy at Circle K was causing problems and being disruptive. So they called police and asked to trespass the guy. Someone else said that he was assaulted by someone and pointed across the street at Tyrone. Police hops out and says, "Hey, buddy, let me talk to you for a second." Obviously, Tyrone can't hear, but then right away proceeds to just attack, right? And I think it's worth taking a second look to just see how gun-ho, and ready he was as soon as he pulls up, right?
Stop where you're at.
Remember, the man is deaf and has cerebral palsy.
See.
Okay. So from right there, he's on it and he's talking about, he's trying to grab him up. He's being aggressive. Now, this plays right into the Department of Justice confirmation. And by the way, the Department of Justice, for them to come out and say that Phoenix is acting in racial bias, they don't want to do that, folks. Right? I understand that there's, political sides to some of these institutions and courts and things like that. But for them to make a finding of fact that a police department is engaging in racial bias means that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence. There's no, there was one or two incidences or something like that. No. So the reason why this reporter, and it does sound like he's playing up the race card a lot, right? Oh, it was a white guy who said it versus the white cop, and they went together to go get the black guy. But that is, in fact, what happened in this case. And I want to talk a little bit about the police feeling so charged, ready, and gun-ho off this white guy saying that he was assaulted. Do I believe that they would have been as gun-ho and ready if it was a black guy saying that he was assaulted by Tyrone? I don't think so. Okay. Race is again, I'm part of the human race, but I'm just using this language that we all understand here. Let's say race or ethnicity is a part of this whole law enforcement dynamic here in these United States. And I'd be happy to discuss that fact with anyone who defers. It is. It always has been. It is now, and it's going to continue to be. Not necessarily in a negative way, but it's something that has to be acknowledged. It can't just be ignored and say, oh, well, it's a human or something of that nature. No. It's a black person, it's a white person, it's an Asian person. You heard the guy say white, then Caucasian, right? These are the realities that are in law enforcement. It just is. Having said that, I believe that it was the white moral authority, that charged that police officer like that and got him to run over there on just some guy who he probably perceived to be nothing more than a vagrant, lowly miscreant out here causing ruckus in society who we need to get rid of. Now, fair enough. Today, there's a lot of disproportionate blacks or people of color who are doing a whole lot of the BS. I get it. Obviously, in this case, he missed the ball, and not only did he miss the ball, he missed horribly. A guy who's deaf, DEAF, it means he can't hear. All right, folks, it means he can't hear. For those who don't know. And then you got institutional racism playing out, where the courts are saying you got probable cause, the district attorney doesn't want to rescind the charges. It just looks ridiculous. It's old Southern slave catcher mentality that's still throughout many of these institutions within the U.S. And it's one of the reasons why we're falling educationally, spiritually, morally, right? The family base, so many things on and on are failing in these United States because of this mentality, this incessant mentality of it's wrong, but we're just going to press on because it's policy. The city doesn't apologize or make mistakes. The state doesn't apologize and make mistakes. The county doesn't apologize and make mistakes. Right? This is where we are. For those who are a little bit on the younger side, and you're having to deal with police like any of us could potentially have to, if you're handicapped, I mean, how sad is this? Yeah, we listen, people. Governments, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. All right, that's the mentality you have to have if you are going to survive this matrix. That's the reality. There's no. That's the only thing that I can say. Right? There's no amount of game or anything else that can be given if that's not your mentality. That's the only thing that's going to bring this thing full circle. Right now, we the people are applying pressure on situations like this, and it is our application of pressure that is moving the bar forward and helping to advance our agenda right now of keeping us whole, keeping us human, keeping us intact. Um, my advice: keep your head on the swivel. Maintain situational awareness. Don't take anything for granted. Right? Do your best to not encounter situations like this, but this is not something that anybody can really account or plan for. Um, is there a racial bias element in law enforcement? Sure, absolutely. Particularly in a place like Phoenix and other areas. Um, and you got to go in there knowing that, and you got to act accordingly. Don't ignore it. Don't assume that you'll be treated with humanity, decency, and all these things. Act accordingly. For the black men in particular that are out there, we have to act accordingly. We are not going to be treated the same. All right, that's the fact. That's not an opinion. There's a findings of fact that the DOJ has made about Phoenix, and rather the DOJ makes a finding of fact about it or not, I'm here to tell you that's the reality. I'm born in 1985. My parents were born in the late 50s and early 60s. The Civil Rights Act wasn't confirmed and then later amended until 1965, 64, 65. Both my parents were born before that date. That would make me the firstborn generation free American. Understand what that means, people. Full citizenship with all its rights without any official on document discrimination. Now, just because that bill was signed in 64, 65 doesn't mean that poof, all that stuff went away. There's plenty of people still kicking that believe in all that good old boy stuff. Trust and believe that. And you can't afford to be a fool. None of us really can. And for the white folks that are out there, you better get your head in the game. All this, societies, what's happening, society's falling apart. Listen, we've been in this from the way that it is for a long time. And for many of us, like myself, my advantage is that I've been at a disadvantage for so long. You are just now starting to come into many of these dysfunctions and disadvantages. Your families are now failing from drugs. Your families are now failing from lack of parentage and lack of support, lack of economic support, lack of community, and other factors. These are things that you're going to have to get your head out of your rear end and do something about. And it ain't going to happen waiting on some politician from somewhere in the world to come to save you. You got to save yourselves, my friends. And you can do it. And blessings and success to you on your journey. And let's get it, folks. Remember, governments should not be afraid of their people. I'm sorry. Remember, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.